Welcome to Paranormal Playground, your source for all things spooky and supernatural. I am your ghost host, Nicholas. Today, we will be exploring the haunted histories and urban legends of the University of Wisconsin-Madison campus. Grab your flashlight and sleeping bag because this campus tour is going to give you goosebumps. Now, before we start, I do want to do a quick update just on Dead Squirrel in the Woods Productions and offshoots, which I like to call DSW Paranormal. We are growing. I am happy to announce that there is going to be a DSW Paranormal Investigators group starting up. We've already actually done one site with some of the members, but this is going to be a 4-person team ready to take on the most haunted sites in the Midwest. We do plan on trying to travel out of the state of Wisconsin, so I'm going to say Midwest. Led by me, Nicholas, and Hope. We will be joined by Mandy and Taylor. Now, this intrepid group can't wait to launch their ghost hunting adventures and share our discoveries with all of you. We will be armed with cameras, EVP recorders, and other equipment, but we also have a passion for finding the paranormal and communicating with those that have passed and helping them in their journey. There will be spine-tingling locations that are well known for supernatural occurrences, from foreboding asylums to creepy graveyards and beyond. No site is too scary for this crew. Stay tuned as the Dead Squirrel team, or DSW Paranormal, gears up to bring you along on our chilling quest to uncover paranormal evidence. We do have a few events planned already, and be on the lookout for our findings on this channel. So now, for our first act, or our first site, I want to take you to the Science Hall, the infamous Science Hall, rumored to be crawling with spirits. Built in 1887 to house the anatomy department, legend tells of secret attic labs, missing cadavers, and ghostly footsteps. Could this be linked to the building's grim past? In the basement morgue, medical students studied corpses. Classrooms and labs were on upper floors. When the department moved in 1957, some cadavers were actually left behind. In the 70s, a human foot and bones were found in sealed-off attic spaces or possible storage spaces. An eerie tale tells of a deranged mad professor conducting twisted experiments in a secret attic lab. While unproven, early floor plans do show private research rooms did exist. Many also report hearing odd sounds and voices traveling through a ventilation system. What's lurking in the shadows at the Science Hall? So, the first thing we're going to go into then is the Mad Professor. This is a tale of a mad professor that inhabits the Science Hall. The story is that there was a crazy professor that had a secret lab in the attic. In this lab, it is said he would conduct twisted experiments. That is not defined what they mean by twisted. Now, this question, is it fact or is it fiction? Did he exist? Did he not? Well, early floor plans do indicate that there were private labs on the lower floors. There is also mention of advanced zoology and botany students could have had access to personal space for independent research. Now, I know the lower floors is not considered an attic, but is this what they're referring to as attic? Now, an account from Laura Markowitz from October 1st, 2019 on the Badger Insider, which I'm assuming is the campus newspaper. There is actually a place that could be considered an attic, and here's her account of that attic. To get to the attic, you take the building's golden elevator to the 5th floor. This is the highest the elevator travels and takes you. You end up at a small landing, then you go through a metal gate the university keeps locked. Up a narrow staircase, which you have to duck while climbing to prevent from hitting your head on the sharply slanted ceilings. Once at the top, you go in another door, and there's a single bare light bulb to light the room. So I'm thinking a light on a string or kind of hanging there that you pull the string. But I haven't seen it. So now she describes the contents in the attic. And there is 1, boxes of soil samples from 1978. 2, old panes from the building's classic curved windows. And leftover building materials. Updated photos from the archives indicate that this section was once used as an anatomy classroom at some point. As you venture up the steep ramp to a small room at the back and the east facing windows that light up the room, of course, there's more debris, such as an old Rolex, library cards, wooden office chairs, and boxes of outdated equipment. Upon further investigation, you will see a long, thin metal pipe with a bunch of old valves along one wall. Now, if you are familiar with labs, gas valves are common, and this is attached to a wooden workbench. So, a work lab. A closer look at the valves showed the mostly generic valves, except for the very last one. The last one has Fleur de Lis stamped on it. Now, according to antique gas lighting expert Paul Ives, this dates back to the mid 1870s and early 1890s. With that, the science hall was actually completed in 1887. So one could assume the attic is an original part of the building. Now, in her research, though, she found a photo of an antibiotic research lab in the early 1930s. And this lab was not in the science hall. It had the same style of bench. So, could this bench have actually originally been there? Or is it original to the attic? So, unfortunately, that kind of leaves the tale of the mad professor inconclusive, but plausible. Now, one of the most common stories from those that have worked or studied in the science hall is the reporting of strange sounds where there shouldn't be. Now, this could be their imaginations, right? I mean, it's possible. Well, early recordings of the science hall make a point, or early writings recordings make a point to brag about the ventilation system. They were proud of the massive steam pipes and intake vents. This contributes to the exceptional conveying of sound. Um, the so that being said, it would be unusual to hear, or it wouldn't be unusual to hear conversations from other floors. So, is that what they're hearing? Also, the building is 130 years old. So, could there be birds trapped in there, other animals? I do tours at a haunted asylum, and we have bats and raccoons. So, we do have to be aware of that when we do our investigations. So, could there be animals? Um, Not sure how you get into this location to actually investigate, but um, so without firsthand knowledge, I do not assume what they are hearing. There is a person behind each story. Now, the spirit of the science hall is another fascinating case where the lore is, it's more lore and less verifiable. So, but you know what? Let's still talk about it. It's a very interesting story. Um, the strange and gruesome parts. So, yeah. Um, so, as I said, the science hall used to be the home of the anatomy department at one point. And some of the cadavers were accidentally left behind in storage when the department moved in 1957. Excuse me. Now, John Kimberling found a hatch leading to the attic while cleaning and painting room 417. He crawled inside, and to his surprise or shock, there was an embalmed human foot. Leg bones were discovered by Shirley Paley, administrative secretary of the geography department, in the fourth floor attic while looking for storage space. So now, there were two deaths in this area that they're saying that there's possibly spirits of, which I would really love to go and find out. But again, if they allow people in to do this, I will have to find out. In 1885, Henry Hoven, construction worker, was mixing concrete in the basement, laying the foundation of the building. A guide wire on the crane broke, causing the crane to hit him in the head. He would later die from the incident. The university paid his wife $1,850 in a wrongful death suit. With inflation and time, that equals about $46,000 today. Maybe a little more now, but close to $46,000. In 1900, a German professor, William H. Rosenstengel, died in room 108 or 180 during a faculty meeting of possibly a stroke. This room is still where faculty meetings take place today. Interesting. So there's a little bit of that. Now, another more lore than actual fact. With the anatomy department in there were cadavers. Well, there is rumor or lore tales that there was a cadaver chute that was used by the anatomy department. Um, Students say, or the tale says, that students would dispose of a cadaver by sending it down a large slide when finished with them. Now, this isn't true. There was a 4-story spiral tube slide, but that's not the purpose of the slide. It was actually a fire escape. And this actually has been replaced with a staircase and updated. So, sorry, thrill seekers, you can't take the supposed cadaver chute. Now, also seen, there is a tale, or not seen, but also there is a tale of the unseen hand. Now, the lore of this, or the story tale of this, goes that on the 4th floor of the science hall where the dissections took place, it is said that beakers will fall off the shelves as if an invisible hand was pushing them off. Now, it is tough to find anyone that experienced this, since the only scientific department in that building since about 1974 is the geography and cartograph departments. So, where did this tale come from? Well, the beaker story was first kind of reported in a paranormal activities website sometime in late 2002. Now, this is an index kind of like Wikipedia, so you can go in, anybody could go in and put it in there, their experience, and can contribute to this. So consider the source. I want to look at this as a interesting, fun tale that you can tell. So on, say, a tour or something, you can bring up this as a fun little story. So, but it is, again, when doing these things, having proof of them happening yourself is the best. You can only go off a hearsay when you read reports. So, yeah. So that's kind of all I have on the science hall. But before we move on, I kind of want to, I think we'll do a little joke here. So, since we're talking about hauntings, what is a room ghosts don't need in their house? Are you ready? It is a living room. Okay, now we are going to go to the Union Theater. If you look in the corner here, right there, I have pictures up, and this is kind of what the buildings are on the outside, to kind of tell you what it is. So you have a reference. Now, the legend has it that the Union Theater is haunted, which, well, if you're familiar with paranormal, theaters tend to be haunted, or said to be haunted. Now, as a actor, I've done a few shows, musicals, stuff like that. I have not acted in, per se, a very active haunted theater. but I think it would be quite interesting. So now the legend goes that there are two ghosts that linger in the Union Theater. According to Ralph Russo, and you may ask, who is Ralph Russo? Well, Ralph Russo was the theater director for 15 years, retiring in 2019. There are unexplained footsteps, doors locking, and lights turning on and off. The ghosts are said to be two spirits of men who tragically died there. One of those men is thought to be hanging around in the above area of Shannon Hall. It's a construction worker. Back in 1939, the story goes, he was working on the original building and had a tragic fall. He would die in the hospital shortly after the incident. And that's basically all I found on him. But passing away there, he could still be there. So now the second is a spirit thought to be Samuel Segal, a timpanist with the Minneapolis Symphony Orchestra. In 1950, under the direction of Antel Girardi, he had a heart attack on stage during a performance. Now, everybody else was unaware of this heart attack or stroke and kept on playing till intermission. Now, this gives a whole new meaning to The Show Must Go On. I get it. A performance is a performance, but maybe there's some things to stop for. But they weren't aware that he passed or had a heart attack. So now, Vernon Anderson, a student that witnessed the concert, had this account. At the conclusion of the section, the front curtains were slowly drawn shut. There was no applause. The audience sat in rapid expectancy. Very soon, a member of the orchestra appeared and announced that a member of the orchestra had been stricken with a heart attack and died instantly. So, apparently there might not have been anything they could do for him. But the program stopped after the play. The orchestra played the deceased member's favorite piece as a tribute, the piece of Beethoven's Seventh Symphony. So, if you're ever in the Union Theater and you hear Beethoven's Seventh Symphony, would that be our timpanist? Who knows? Now, since we are doing it's a theater, let's I got another joke theater related to for you, and deals with ghosts. What Shakespeare play do ghosts like best? Yeah, you're gonna like this one. Romeo and Juliet. Now, our second to last stop, I got one more tale after this for you, or another stop after this for you, is going to be Bascom Hall. And this is a pretty short one, so there's not too much to this one. Now, the land that Bascom Hall stands on, or the area, used to be the graveyard for Madison's earliest settlers. Over 1,000 were buried here from 1837 to 1846, when the workmen unearthed human remains in 1918. It was decided to move them. When it was decided to rebury them at the Abraham Lincoln statue site. Sorry. The first skeleton was William Nelson, who is said to be the first white settler to die of typhoid in 1837. The second was Samuel Warren, a British mason, struck by lightning in 1838. At the statue's base, small plaques mark their resting place. Do they inhabit that area? Maybe. Now, there are only two Lincoln statues. Um, the two were made in Ogdenville, Kentucky, and one of the people involved in it was an alumni from UW, Wisconsin. So it goes that Lincoln, Nebraska asked for or commissioned a piece um, for a Lincoln statue at their campus or in Lincoln, Nebraska, and there was requests for more, and only one more was going to be approved, but since one of the people was a UW Madison alumni, he convinced the second one to be made for the cost of material, and that's how UW Madison got their Lincoln statue. Which actually is quite interesting because that leads us into our next discussion here of Camp Randall Stadium. So I have two pictures here for you. One is currently what it was, and one is what it was when it was a Civil War camp. The black and white is a Civil War camp. So our final stop then is going to be Camp Randall Stadium. Patrons that go to Camp Randall Stadium for Badger games have said they see Civil War ghosts. Now, this was the original fairgrounds for the state of Wisconsin, and later, in 1861, would become a Union Army training camp. So I thought it was quite interesting that we have a Lincoln statue at UW, Wisconsin, because there was a training camp for the Union soldiers there from Wisconsin. At one point, it also held POWs from the Confederacy, and over 140 of those died and are buried nearby. So, would make sense that they might inhabit the stadium there. Other tragedies also mar the stadium's past. Just the construction of the stadium itself. They used to have wooden bleachers. There was a fire at one point, and I think that was 1917. That one was kind of one I didn't really pay too much attention to, but in 1915, some of the wooden bleachers collapsed during a game, and in 1982, a young woman was murdered outside the stadium gates. Her case remains unsolved. Much of this sorrow is in the past, but many believe that spirits linger. I'm one of them. With having gone to some sites now and starting up this investigation team, where hopefully we will find evidence of this, and be able to help the spirits we do find. So, with that said, at the games, there are some strange sightings and eerie feelings abound on game day. Screams of long dead soldiers echo as if they're cheers from the crowd. So, take it for what it is. I would love to go to a Badgers game there and maybe see if I experience any of that for myself. And yes, I'd probably watch the game too. I do like a little football. Now, if you want, there are tours offered by American Ghost Walks, uh, and that's a tour group that they do tours in Milwaukee, Chicago, all over. They do one at the UW Madison site. Um, the tour is about 90 minutes. Now, this is not a ghost hunt. This is a tour of the history, and a paranormal experience is not a guarantee on these. The cost starts at $25 an hour. If you want to try to get a paranormal experience, you can bring your own equipment. If you do investigations yourself, like I would suggest probably a K2 meter, which basically if something goes near it, the electromagnetic energy it'll sense electromagnetic energy. When doing this, also beware of electrical grids and stuff like that. One method is a voice recorder, which I have, just a simple voice recorder. You can open it, ask some questions, leave some silence, and then ask another question. And then sometimes you might get something that sounds like something's talking to you or saying something. If you've watched any of the shows or any of that, what that is. Another thing, on our phones, there's apps you can do that, um, like word push apps, that spirits can talk into. There's equipment that you can buy that does that as well. And these can get you started. They're not always 100% accurate, but if they're related to what you're talking about or asking, um, it gives you a direction to go. So, now, I have not contacted the university myself to see if I was able to get into any of these locations. I'm going to research that and how we can get inside or something possibly, but the tour is an outdoor tour, so you will not see the inside of these places. So no, you will not see the Mad Professor's attic. You will not see um, the stage itself and the theater. They take you to Memorial Union, which is a lakefront landmark that has been a favorite of students and alumni for decades. It was built in 1931, and the question with this one is, why do people see a woman dressed in 19th century clothing on the staircase? This did not show up in my research when I researched haunted UW Madison, but then of course the Union Theater, you'll walk past there, Science Hall, then there's Radio Hall, the original home of America's oldest radio station, WHA, which I might have to look some history up on that. That sounds quite interesting. And the first broadcast dates back to 1919. Who are the announcers that never left the airways? Don't know. North Hall, the first building at the University of Wisconsin, was also a dormitory for John Moore, the founder of the Sierra Club. But in this historic building, there's ghost stories from the 1880s to 1890s. I mean, it's the 1980s, sorry. Abraham Lincoln, the unusual gravesite of the two they dug up. Sterling Hall, from a tragic act of terrorism during Vietnam War protest to the dumping grounds of a murderer. There was a serial murder case, which that one outside of Camp Randall was linked to at one point, but then they disproved it. And just sad stories, and there's supposedly a haunted energy. The music hall, Oh, this was the first music school and was originally the auditorium, and it could house the unit, and it housed all of the students in 1880, all 481 students. Now, former professors have talked about weird things they've seen wandering the halls. So I've got a few more things I can research here. We can maybe jump into a little more. The humanities building, one of UW's newer buildings, also has some weird urban legends. Um, is it really riot proof? What happened to the original architect? Um, on the tour, they'll have the real story for you. So, um, yeah. And Memorial Library. Um, what beloved? What have the University of Wisconsin librarians can see? One of the beloved University of Wisconsin librarian can be still seen walking with the stacks. So that'd be interesting to go see. I mean, I'm sure that's open during the day to the public, so that might be a place you could go in without getting permission to investigate and see what you see. Um, a lot of ghost hunting is just going to the place and maybe you get something, maybe you don't. So, so yeah. Um, so in conclusion, thanks for joining me on this haunted campus tour. Though many of the ghostly tales remain shrouded in mystery, the rich history of the university cannot be denied. Its halls and grounds saw their fair share of tragedy and death, and that is sometimes all you need. So, as the sun sets on the University of Wisconsin Madison campus, keep an eye out for apparitions roaming the quad. And with that, this is Nicholas signing off from Paranormal Playground. Please join me next time for the spooky history of Whitewater, Wisconsin.